So, if you guys have been following the podcast over the last few weeks, what we have done is we have ranked each college football program at the FBS level. We've ranked them from 1 to 134. Now, we did not rank the teams. We have not gotten to that yet. We'll maybe push out in any given Saturday top 25 after spring ball is concluded sometime in May. And that's more ranking, power rating the teams based on neutral field favorability. What this is about is ranking the programs, and we rank these programs based on a few different factors. If you want more details on that, you should go to part one of this, series that we have on ranking these programs. So those three factors are: what is your on-field success from 2019 to this past college football season? And not every win is the same. So we did weight wins differently. What is your head coaching stability like? Have you had the same coach for the last 4 to 5 years, or has there been a little bit more of a revolving door of coaches? And of course, what is your talent acquisition, not only in high school recruiting, but also in the transfer portal as well, as the transfer portal has become a more important element in recruiting talent for your football team as as of the last few years. So, with those out of the way, we now jump right into, and today we're going to reveal 61 through 80. So, we are going to start down at number 80, and this is going to come to a surprise of quite a few people. So, I have the Arizona Wildcats at number 80 right now. I'm going to pause real quick for dramatic effect. Let you get your angry comments down, if you want to do that, of course. So, Arizona had an excellent season last year. They had a 10-win season. They ended up winning the Alamo Bowl. It was Jedd Fisch's best season. But we talked about programs, so we're talking about more of the long term. And Arizona in the long term has not been very good the last few years. There was a 2-year stretch in 2020 and 2021 where they won a grand total of 1 game. They are also on their 3rd head coach as well in the last 5 years. Jedd Fisch has since moved on from Arizona. He is now coaching at Washington. So they now have a new head coach in Brent Brannon, who's coming over from San Jose State. So there's been a revolving door of head coaches. They're on their 3rd head coach of the last 5 years. And outside of last season, Arizona has really not made very much noise at all. They have been under 500 the last 5 years before we saw that 10-3 pop from Jedd Fisch. And they accidentally got there. They backed into it because their backup quarterback turned out to be better than their starter. Who would have thunk it? Wouldn't have been me. I would not have been able to tell you that. And also, recruiting is not great. They're not a great recruiter of talent either. They're outside of the top 50 for the last 5 years when you look at the recruiting rankings. And so they average around 54 to 55. So they recruit okay. I think they recruit at a similar level than I want to say Vanderbilt. I'm going to check that real quick. So Vanderbilt's actually recruiting a higher level of talent than Arizona is. This is the power school, by the way. So great season by Arizona last year. Don't get me wrong. But now that you have a new coach, can you sustain that kind of success moving forward? Or was it kind of a flash in the pan and Arizona ends up returning to mediocrity? Certainly isn't guaranteed either way. Don't know how Brent Brannon is going to handle being a head coach for the first time at a power conference school. So that is number 80. And now we'll go ahead and move on over to number 79. And 79, I do have Northwestern. Now, Northwestern has surprisingly had decent success. They did appear in a Big Ten championship game back in the COVID year in 2020. The last couple of years have not been good for Pat Fitzgerald. We also know about the harassment scandal at Northwestern that ultimately got Pat Fitzgerald fired. But before that, Pat Fitzgerald was there since 2006. He's been there for an extraordinarily long time. David Braun takes over. He was originally just an interim head coach because it was so late in the process that they were not going to be able to find a new head coach before the season started. However, David Braun has proved that he could be the long-term answer for Northwestern moving forward. Ends up going 8-5, beats a good Utah team in the bowl game. So Northwestern has had a little bit more coaching stability than Arizona. Their on-field success is honestly similar. This season being their best season since the COVID year. They do not recruit that well, though. They are outside of the top 60 on average when it comes to recruiting. They are getting a new stadium. Maybe that could help, maybe not. But we'll see how David Braun is more in the long term. But for now, I do have Northwestern at 79. Speaking of newer head coaches, Houston recently got a brand new head coach, and I actually have the Houston Cougars at number 78. Now, Houston has recently made the transition from the Group of Five when they were members of the American Conference since 2013 to now they are here in the Big 12 Conference. And the Big 12 Conference debut season for Houston, left more to be desired. They went 2-7 in conference play. Dana Holgensen, who was there since 2019, by the way, well, he has been let go. And Houston now finds itself needing a head coach for the first time since 2019. And they ended up grabbing Willie Fritz. And I'm a big Willie Fritz guy. He has proven that he's been able to win at every level that he's been at. That's even dating back to his days at the junior college ranks. For example, he's taken Central Missouri, a Division II school, to nearly 100 wins at his time there. Led Sam Houston State in the FCS to multiple Division I championship appearances down the FCS level. Helped the transition for Georgia Southern to go into making their transition from FCS to FBS, and then turned Tulane around too. Led them to the Cotton Bowl in 2022, had an over 500 record. This is a team that Tulane has been able to turn itself around and turn to one of the better Group of Five programs. So Willie Fritz knows how to win. And now he gets the opportunity to coach at a power school for the very first time. So that's what Houston has going on. And they're going to need it too, because since they made a trip to the American Conference Championship back in 2021, they haven't been the same. 8-5 in 2022, 4-8 this year. So we'll see if Willie Fritz can turn it around. For now, though, I do have Houston at number 78. At number 77, I have yet another surprise. It's got to be Kansas. Kansas, I have at number 77. Now, if this was more of a projection versus what your program has been the last 4 to 5 years, probably have Kansas a little bit higher. But listen, Kansas has historically not been a strong football program. There's no secrets about that. This is the first time that Kansas has finished above 500 since 2008 this past season. And Lance Leopold is doing a very good job at Kansas. He has done a good job turning the culture around. He's going to have himself, I would imagine, a good football team this upcoming season as well. There's also a couple years of Les Miles that's in here as well to account for the on-field success. Les Miles was an absolute flop for the Kansas Jayhawks during his time there. It's really a consistency thing. Yes, Kansas had an excellent season last year, winning the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, nearly winning 10 games. Very close to winning 10 games. But can they maintain that level of success, or is it another flash in the pan? In addition, Kansas is recruiting at a slightly higher level than Houston. They do recruit inside the top 60, but they do rely on development, though. Speaking of programs that do rely on that development a little bit more, though, That is the Orange of Syracuse over in the ACC, who I do have coming in at number 76 in these rankings. Now, Dino Babers has been there for a very long time. He's been coaching at Syracuse since 2016, and he's had his moments even leading Syracuse to as high of a ranking as number 12 in the country in the college football playoff poll. But Dino Beavers, I think Syracuse is frustrated with the lack of progress, because Dino Beavers has been able to, have them hovering around 500, but haven't really been able to take that next step. So they went ahead, they fired Babers. They did bring in Fran Brown, who gets his first head coaching opportunity. He does have a little bit of defensive coordinator experience, but they have a brand new head coach. And Syracuse does have a decent amount of success on the field. Not a tremendous amount of success, though. They also recruit barely inside the top 60. Very similar to Kansas, but Syracuse does recruit just a little bit better. And they do also have slightly more on-field success the last 5 years than what Kansas has. But again, it's very close. So that's why I have Syracuse here at number 76. At number 75, though, I got the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. And the Scarlet Knights are led by Greg Schiano, who is in his second stint with Rutgers. His first stint being back when this team was still in the Big East. But ever since he left that first time around, they fell in a little bit harder times. We knew Chris Ash was definitely not the answer at all. He got fired in the middle of the 2019 season. So Greg Schiano's been there since the COVID year. And Greg Schiano has led Rutgers to its very first bowl win. They had a bowl game in 2021, even though they were 5-7, but that's because the school happened to have good APR schools, not because of what they did on the field necessarily. But Greg Schiano is stabilizing the program. It's turning into a solid program. And he's doing a decent job recruiting too. His teams on average, he ends up in the top 50. So he has a sizable lead over, the Syracuses and the Kansases of the world. So Rutgers could be a program that's trending in that upward direction. For now, I do have the Scarlet Knights at number 75. Speaking of the Big Ten, I do have the Indiana Hoosiers up next. And Indiana, people forget, Indiana was actually kind of in the hunt to go to the playoff. They ended up being a top 10 team in that 2020 season. They even started the year ranked in 2021. Also made an AP poll appearance back in 2019. Last couple of years for Tom Allen were not positive years. That's why Tom Allen was let go. They do have a new head coach, though, that I really like. Kirk Canetti. He's a head coach of James Madison. He had that machine running at James Madison. We're going to find out, is James Madison successful because of where they are as a program, or was James Madison successful at the FBS level mainly because of this guy? We're going to find those answers over the next 2 to 3 years. But in his time at James Madison, in the last 5 years, 52-9. This is a guy that knows how to win, so I really like the hire. There's history of them being in the AP poll. They recruit pretty decently well. They're a couple of spots higher on average than what a Rutgers is. So they're Indiana not as bad of a spot that some people think they are. So I do have Indiana at 74 because of that. But up next, though, we got Georgia Tech coming in at number 73. Georgia Tech recently making a bowl game under Brent Key, and that's Brent Key's first season there, winning the Gasparilla Bowl ultimately, I believe, against UCF as well. Georgia Tech making a bowl game for the first time since 2018. They do get the benefit of playing against power conference competition. They do also recruit at an even higher level. They're one spot ahead of Indiana on average. They usually are recruiting in the top 45. And I do expect that to get better as Brent Key is really implementing more of his principles, so to speak, into the program. Really like Brent Key, and I think this is a program that is trending upward. But that being said, for now, we do have them at number 73. That's as high as I can put them until they have more bowl success, postseason success. However, at number 72, I got another ACC team, a newcomer. That's Cal. Yes, Cal is in the ACC, guys. Imagine that. Who would have thought, right? So Cal is number 72 in these rankings. And a big reason why they're there is because they do have that coaching stability, unlike a Georgia Tech, unlike an Indiana. Justin Wilcox has been in place since 2017. And Justin Wilcox, since he's been the Cal, has been this just been this average, below average power school. They've had a high of 8 wins, and they've never dipped into really poverty status. They're a very average Power 5 school, but they do get the benefit of being in California. That also helps in their recruiting. They're a top 42 recruiting team on average. It's a youth movement in Cal. Could be a program also trending in the right direction. So for now, I do have Cal at 72. At 71, though, I got the Razorbacks of Arkansas. Razorbacks led by Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman's seat could be a little bit warm after the 4-8 season that they've just had. But before that, though, Arkansas did went and won bowl games in 2 years in a row. They're just about out of that Chad Morris era. The Chad Morris era, really a poverty time for Razorback fans that I'm sure they want to absolutely forget about as soon as possible. So their on-field success should be trending upward if they can find a way to get through what is somewhat brutal schedule for the Razorbacks. They do recruit extremely well, though. They are recruiting around the top 25 each individual year. So the recruiting is really good, and so the upside is there more so. For now, I do have the Razorbacks at 71, mainly because of that back end of the Chad Morris days. That was rough to watch. What is not rough to watch, though, is the just beauty of the execution of the triple option. And you know what that means. I'm about to talk about a military academy. Air Force is up next, and Air Force makes my list at number 70 for this upcoming season. When it comes to programs, Troy Calhoun has been there for a long time, since 2007, and it's always been hard to recruit talent at Air Force, given that, one, they can't participate in the transfer portal. They also can't really participate in the NIL game at all because it's a military academy. It's not about finding athletes. Well, you could still find those athletes, but your main purpose is, to prepare them for the military. That's the point of being a military academy, right? So Troy Calhoun is in a very difficult spot to win at historically, but that being said, he's found a way to make it happen, though. Troy Calhoun has led Air Force to 3 consecutive bowl wins, dating back to 2021. Last 5 years, they have not had a single season where they have dipped below 500. 3 of the last 5 years, they've won double-digit games. So Air Force is humming along pretty well. Now, it's mostly against Group of 5 competition, but if you're able to have double-digit win seasons in 3 of the last 5 years, that's nothing to scoff at, regardless of the level that you are having to play at. What does hold Air Force back, unfortunately, is the talent acquisition. It is a lot harder for them to go and get talent because they are military academies. So their average recruiting ranking is 123 over the last 5 years. That is one of the worst in the FCS, only by around teams like New Mexico, UTEP being down bad around here. Just not good with recruiting, but they can't help that. That's not really their fault. That's why I do have Air Force at number 70. They are limited, but Troy Calhoun is making the most of it, though. Also making the most out of things is Detroit Trojans out of the Sun Belt, and they do come in up next at number 69. So you already know, but that is a very nice program out there in Troy, Alabama. So Troy actually has been a little bit more of a revolving door for head coaches, so to speak. Chip Lindsey has been there for a few years before he was let go. John Summerall, he was there for a couple years, did a great job. He's now hired by Tulane. We might be talking about him later, so stay tuned for that. They do have a new head coach, Deron Parker. He's going to try to build off of what John Summerall has been doing, but this is a good program. This has been a good program the last couple of years. 12 and 11, 23 wins in the last couple of years. The recruiting for a group of 5 school is actually well, it's not terrible. It's not good. They are recruiting outside the top 100, but the on-field success is certainly their choice. So that's why Troy is as high as they are. If it wasn't for those 10-win seasons, they'll probably be lower on the list. But because of those 2 11 and 12-win seasons, they are up here at 69, even though the recruiting and what we have seen in the head coaching carousel is a little bit of a concern. Up next at number 68, I got San Diego State. San Diego State now has a new head coach once again. We've seen Rocky Long be here. Brady Hoke was here the last 4 years as well. He has retired. They got themselves a good head coach, though, I think. They got Sean Lewis. Now, Sean Lewis led Kent State for the last 5 of the last 6 years before he went to Colorado. Did his offensive coordinator thing at Colorado. Now is back into head coaching at the group of 5 level. Now he's here at San Diego State, looking to kind of turn things around for the Aztecs because they went 4-8 this past season. But before that 4-8 season, they haven't dipped below 500 since 2009. It's a solid program. It's a steady program. One that has seen San Diego State ranked at multiple instances in the last 5 years. They also recruit very well for a group of 5 school as well. They're just outside the top 75, so they're one of the better recruiters of college football at the G5 level as well. So a good program. They're in a good spot locationally as well. That's why I have the Aztecs at 68. Now coming in at number 67, I actually have the best program in the MAC conference, and that is the Red Hawks of Miami. Now, Miami has had the benefit of having the exact same head coach since 2014. So this man's been at it for a decade at the same school, and it's been, a slow rolling start for Miami, but I think Miami is really starting to turn a corner here. They've won 8 games they've went above 6 wins since 2018, excluding the COVID year. So Miami is turning into one of the top tier programs in the MAC, really only Toledo, the only one that is realistically challenging them from a program standpoint, from a long-term standpoint. Going to bowl games 4 of the last 5 years. Their recruiting isn't great. Recruiting barely inside the top 100, but they have the coaching continuity. They also have, not to mention, won the MAC championship this past season as well. They are your MAC champs. So it's a very good program. That's why I have the MAC, this Miami team, as the best program in the MAC. And that lands them number 67, which is about right in the middle in terms of what we've had seen for these FBS program rankings thus far. At number 66, though, is a team that is effectively like a G5 program with how their schedule is structured nowadays. Now, it's not this program's fault. The Pac-12 did eventually dissolve right before our eyes. But at number 66, I do have Washington State. Now, Washington State has been hovering around 6 to 7 wins the last 3 to 5 years. This is a program that's trending downward. Mike Leach was there for a long time. Probably had the most relevance under Mike Leach. He did leave for Mississippi State before he ended up tragically passing away. Nick Rolovich was there for a couple of years. He got let go because of some COVID restriction rules that he was not following. Jake Dickert has been the coach since then. He's been fine, but he hasn't been great, so to speak. Actually, his team absolutely collapsed in the second half of the season. So we're basically a group of 5 school now. There's been some coaching changes that have been happening relatively often the last few years. Recruiting has not been that great. It's hard to get kids to Pullman, Washington. They're barely inside the top 65 as well. They're 66 for now, but if we do this again next year, I wouldn't be surprised if they fall outside of the top 80 this time next year, unless Jake Dickert has a breakout year and things change from a conference realignment standpoint. Now, a program that is looking to see if they can maintain that success, though, is the Tulane Green Wave. They're going to be above what we have seen from Washington State. They come in at number 65. Now, what we've seen from Tulane is that, listen, Tulane has won double-digit win seasons the last 2 years. That has been culminated by a Cotton Bowl victory during the 2022 campaign. But Willie Fritz is gone. Willie Fritz is no longer the head coach of Tulane. He's moved on to Houston. So now John Sumrall, the guy that was coaching at Troy for the last couple of years, he's now at Tulane. So John Sumrall went to Tulane as a result of Willie Fritz going to Houston as a result of Dana Holkinson being fired. All right. So they do have a new head coach. They do absolutely have a new head coach. They actually do have pretty solid on-field success. That should improve as years go on, getting that 2021 season out as well. They recruit okay. They're not a great recruiter and acquisition of talent, but they know how to develop the talent, right? That's what's made Tulane successful over the last couple of years. Their average total recruit ranking by 247 Sports does fall barely into the top 75 at 73 the last 5 years. So good program, good group of 5 program, one of the best programs in the American Conference. Now, at number 64, I do have the Illinois Fighting Illini. The Fighting Illini of Illinois are coming in at number 64 for me. They are led by Brett Belima. Probably butchered that. You can go ahead and roast me in the comments section. Been okay. He's been okay at Illinois. Has led him to an 8-5 campaign back in 2022. They've only made a couple of bowl appearances. So how is Illinois this high? Well, Illinois is a little bit on this higher side because they do get the benefit of the doubt of playing better competition than Tulane. And we do weight wins differently depending on who you play. So a power conference win, beating a power 5 team or a power 4 team, is going to have more weight than if you beat a group of 5 team. Tulane has won these plenty of games, but they've mostly been group of 5 teams. So that's why Illinois is kind of this team that's had more on-field success than what we have seen from Tulane, is because of that power conference bias that's kind of put into these rankings here. They do recruit okay. They do recruit in the top 65. Brett Belima is entering his 4th year, so things are stabilizing, but it's not great, I would say, in Illinois right now. I'll just put it like that. So, few more teams left on before we call it a day. Let's now jump into number 63. At number 63, I got the Virginia Cavaliers. Virginia Cavaliers actually, it surprised me a little bit. So they made it to the ACC championship back in 2019. Since then, they've been a mid-tier / low-tier team on the field, but that's not really been why Virginia is on this list necessarily. It's not necessarily because of the on-field success. They have a good head coach in Tony Elliott. I think Tony Elliott can absolutely turn things around. They actually recruit better than Illinois. That does help them too. So even though they've dealt with some adversity the last couple of years, Tony Elliott, I think, has Virginia on the right track. So I do have Virginia at 63. Now, at 62, I do have Arizona State. Arizona State actually been recruiting pretty well, even with all the turmoil that's happened at that university. They've had the bowl ban this last year. Granted, they probably weren't making a bowl game anyways. They're building towards this season. They're circling this season as this return back to relevance. But Kenny Dillingham in his second year has taken on some good recruiting practices. Arizona State does have multiple top 35 classes the last 5 years. They've had decent on-field success under Herm Edwards. Just Herm Edwards couldn't get them over the top necessarily. Hopefully Kenny Dillingham is given more time, but some good momentum here and some good potential. For now, I have Arizona State at 62. And finally, I got the Gamecocks of South Carolina at 61. Now, South Carolina has had, decent stability at the head coach position. Shane Beamer is going to enter his fourth season. Now, Shane Beamer did not make a bowl game, but South Carolina has also not been great on the field before Shane Beamer has arrived. Will Muschamp kind of ran this program close to the ground. So Shane Beamer starting to turn things around. Recruiting has been very good for South Carolina outside of 1 year. Outside of like a 1 year where they were like 80th in recruiting, they have 4 top 25 classes. So they have plenty of talent on that South Carolina roster. The talent is certainly there. They just play in a really difficult conference. So it's harder to have that on-field success, so to speak, when you play in arguably the toughest conference in America. But because they do recruit at a very high level, a top 25, top 30 level, the head coach stability is also there as well, with Shane Beamer entering his fourth year. South Carolina is a little bit higher because of that. And that's why I do have South Carolina as my 61st best program in America. A good program, so to speak. But guys, that is going to go ahead and wrap things up here. What do you guys think of this part of my rankings in terms of a program standpoint? Let me know down in the comments what has surprised you in terms of teams that you already saw that maybe are lower than what you expected, or teams that I haven't spoken about yet but you thought that you were going to see. Let me know down in the comment section down below. Certainly love to hear your thoughts.